All right, here on In the Circle on D1 Softball, powered by 643. We can't just talk NCAA World Series and postseason talk without this particular guest. I think she's become prominent in our podcast. I want to say the entire decade. I think she's 2021. I think she's been on the show at some point, either during the season or definitely during our postseason coverage. Of course, she is a fresh standout player at Georgia, was part of their World Series team in 2010, was also recently at Illinois, where she led them to 4 NCAA tournaments as the associate head coach. I think she's been to like 8 NCAA tournaments. Player, coach, assistant, volunteer, you name it. She knows a thing or two about the NCAA tournament. I speak of her friend Laura Trout here on In the Circle at D1 Softball. Is that right? How many NCAA tournaments? Player, associate head coach, I know volunteer, you were there at Georgia. Like, you've been to the postseason a lot.
I think it's 9, but
9, all right.
South Carolina, we went to a few.
That's a good number.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Very good number there. You've been on our podcast. What, was 21 the first time we had you on?
I think so. It was that first.
5 years, yeah. Long time.
Yeah.
You still keep saying yes, so I appreciate that. Let's talk about this the postseason, but let's start with the Champ Series. This is the second year in a row we've had you on to talk Texas Tech. Ironically, we had you on last year. Part of the reason, you know the head coach at Texas Tech pretty well. You played for Jerry Glasgow, and you were a player at Georgia, and he was the associate head coach under Lou Harris-Champer. You've had a little time as we record this after the Champ Series, a day or so afterwards. What kind of jumps out to you? What's your big takeaway from seeing Texas repeat and taking care of Texas Tech rather, I thought, somewhat comfortably in 2 games?
I think you saw, both of them had, games where in regionals, supers, just kind of on edge, close to elimination. And I think you saw, Texas just kind of have that, that experience, that vision, that they've done it before. Experience and knowing they've done it before can go a long way when you come this far. I think Texas Tech, goodness gracious, the regional, the super, imagine how exhausted they were. And then, obviously even having a double dip Sunday. Texas had a double dip too. It's exhausting. But I think as Texas, you've been there before. Sometimes that matters. And, maybe that's what it came down to. You also have somebody like Tegan Kavan in the circle, just absolutely put her team on her back in a year where pitchers in the circle were thrown to the wolves, strike zones, technology. You can debate the reasonings, but she just put the team on her back and honestly, let that doubt kind of creep in for Texas Tech and ran away with it, really.
The thing that impresses me about Texas, and I've covered this core of this team now through the entirety, is they seem to play their best when their backs are against the wall. They dropped the first game in the Supers to a red-hot Arizona State team, came back, won late in Game 2, beat Kenzie Brown in relief, beat Kenzie Brown in Game 3 with Kavan, dropped the first game in the World Series to Tennessee, had to come out of the losers bracket, beat Mississippi State, getting no hit. They're 5 outs away from being knocked out by Nebraska on Sunday. They get the big hit from Katie Stewart, 3-run homer, and then, as you mentioned, doubled up Tennessee on Monday to get to the Champ Series. As somebody who played and is coached, how do you explain that? And I asked Mike White, and I asked their players, they're like, hey, we just, for whatever reason, we just come together more when our backs are against the wall. Can you relate to that? How do you explain them being at their peak and rising to the occasion when they're on the brink?
It's what you hope you have in players. It's just that true competitive spirit of, backs against the wall. It's do or die. It's now or never. And you have. It's always interesting to me because I'm a big believer to win a championship. It has to be everybody. It can't just be the stars. And what you saw is, for some games, the bottom of the lineup would show up and kind of get things going. The pinch hit home run in the supers. It's just a little bit of everybody. And then when everybody can do it, then nobody feels pressure. So I think throughout their run, you saw a little bit of everybody kind of showing up and doing something here, something there. So Katie Stewart doesn't feel like she has to do everything. Reese Atwood doesn't have to, feel like she has to do everything. And you kind of give them a chance to, all right, I don't have to be perfect. I can go out there and just do my job. I don't have to carry this team. And I think that's what we saw is you saw, different parts of the lineup, different people from the bench, different pitchers. I mean, you can't talk enough about what Sit Lolly did. Um, it kind of goes back to like what Mish Gascoigne did, all those years back, when everyone was talking
Oklahoma,
about,
right?
yeah, when everybody's talking about Ricketts. Well, um, you know, there's the Oklahomas too, and she gets it done, and I think that's what you saw from Sitlali was she got it done when they needed it, backs into the wall. She's in there, gives Tegan a moment to breathe, a moment to realize she doesn't have to do it all because these my teammates got my back, and you get to play a little freer that way. And that's to me what I saw is I saw a team that looked like they could count on everybody. They didn't have to do it all, and that lets each of their individual abilities kind of rise. And then you start to see Katie Stewart smashing the ball, and you start to really see them do what they're capable of.
Yeah, Katie Stewart, who was a first team D1 softball All-American. Not sure why the NFCA had her as second team. As she, I think that's a calculation mistake there. She put on a monster as SEC Player of the Year. What makes Tegan Cavan so difficult to hit? Especially, what's so unique about her is she rises to her game even more in the postseason, more so than the regular season, which is probably why she's been underrated because other pitchers get the notoriety and everything. But you look at her now resume: 2 national championships, the first player ever to win back-to-back most outstanding player of the tournament. She's an SEC tournament of MVP. To me, she's the best college softball pitcher in the world right now. I think she holds the belt.
I would agree. And you think about, a month or two back, whenever it was, there was a rough spell for her in the SEC play. And I think that says more about her is that didn't define her. She just, that's going to happen, especially in this, what's the average ERA pitchers is 4.9, something insane like that. Like people are going to hit you. The strike zones are tight, and you saw a player that just, figured it out. Okay, this is going to be my zone today. Got to figure it out. Oh, they're going to hit this pitch today. I better bring it with a different pitch. And I think she has such a repertoire. She can do that. If she locates and she hits her spots and she can really, attack an offense however she wants to. Oh, they can't hit up. She can throw up. She can throw at her hands. They struggle with off speed. Well, she can throw a filthy changeup. She needs to down. So I think just she has a repertoire that it's not like she has only an A pitch and then everything else are B pitches. She has A plus pitches across the board. And obviously she has a phenomenal staff behind her that I'm assuming helps her game plan, and they put great game. That's what you saw. You saw her attack, teams multiple times, a little bit better than the last. And we want to talk about technology and how it makes it hard to pitch. Well, she got better, the next time she saw somebody. And that's obviously execution. It's mental toughness. And it's impressive, especially when, that you're supposed to be the girl for your team.
Yeah, I mean, the case in point, she comes in relief. I think she struck out 5 of the 6 Texas Tech hitters to close it out. Got
Like a true competitor. Like
yeah.
it's not even giving them a breath, because if you give Texas Tech an inch, they're going to take a mile. She just squashed it, no hope, and just in true competitive fashion.
Yeah, I saw a stat of hers in the World Series. She has a 0 ERA in the 6th and 7th inning in her career. That's unbelievable. Yeah, it's like shutting the door, man. She just
That's different.
But a credit to Salali Gutierrez, who pitched a magnificent game in the semi against Tennessee to get them to that point, to set it up for Cavan, and then pitched a great game too. You know Jerry's offense as well as anybody. He taught you, obviously, hitting, and you use a lot of his principles in your style of teaching offense. How was Texas able to contain Jerry's offense?
I mean, like I said, you got different things. You have Tegan, a little bit more power. can, like I said, can throw all kinds of things. Then you got the spin. Sitlalik is spin, and you put those two together, it's really hard to game plan for that. Which we can talk about what Jerry was doing with his pitchers, like why that worked, because it's really hard as a hitter to kind of game plan for just multiple arms. And I think that pitchers still dominate. I know, like we talked about the 4.9, national ERA average and things like that. But if a pitcher can execute their game plan, hitters can adjust. But I mean, since this sport is a thing, a 300 batting average is phenomenal, and that means pitchers win a great amount of the time. And I think you see Tegan, who has her repertoire, and then you see Sitlali with her spin and her spot. I mean, she can put it wherever she wants. And as a hitter, it's tough. It's still tough. And I do think the strike zone, for the most part, was a little bit better at the World Series than kind of what I saw all season, which, thank goodness. So I thought you saw, pitchers being able to pitch and hit spots, make good pitches, and not really just kind of have to throw it down the middle. And, at the end of the day, when you're playing for championships, pitching matters. When you know each other as well as they know each other, they saw each other last year, pitching matters, execution matters. And, it's hard to hit everything. So if you execute, then it's tough. And I think you saw pitchers that executed their spots, went at hitters' weaknesses, and it's tough. And Jerry had them prepared. They knew exactly what to expect. But a pitcher still kind of has the ability to, okay, you're sitting off speed, well, let me blow it by you. Oh, you're getting your barrel out. You're trying to be early on my ball up and on your hands. Well, let's go off speed. And it's just hard. Hitting is hard.
Very hard. One of the things I know Jerry was disappointed with was his defense. He felt they were out of position at a lot of times. I thought Texas exposed that. The simple game, just put the ball in play, the short game, especially in game one. And certainly the biggest play that turned the game in game two was in the fifth inning when Vivi Martinez hits that ball to short. Haley Toney throws it wide there. Now, you were a standout shortstop. If we had the Gold Glove awards back when you played at Georgia, I think you would have gotten the Gold Glove. You were acknowledged as the best defensive player on the team at Georgia, and we're the best defensive players in the conference of the SEC that year. So the position of shortstop. I want to start with that play because that was a significant moment. Haley Toney's a bright kid, a tremendous talent, great year. What happened there that went wrong for her in Texas Tech there? Because that got Texas 2 runs in the lead they would never give up.
It's shortstop is a tough position. She's a phenomenal shortstop, and sometimes our feet just don't get where we want them to. Sometimes the game speeds up on us, and as a defender, as some she's been playing shortstop for G. She's a freshman last year, didn't miss a single. That's his shortstop, that's his defender, and you give her that play 9 more times, she makes the play. But is
that a situation where it's easy to rush because you're trying to get the force out? Is that where she just rushed it? Was it just off balance there? What happens as a shortstop? As somebody who's played that position, because it's easy to say from the outside, "Oh, I can't believe you," but that's not an easy play. I'm not convinced if she throws accurately that's an out, but you had no other option.
Oh yeah, it's hard. You're like, what is she supposed to do there? And 99% of the population cannot make that play. And it's hard to say if she rushed it. As a shortstop, as an infielder in our sport, you have an internal clock. You know how long it takes you to get to a ball. You know how long it took to get to you, and how long a runner takes to get to each base. A rough estimate, and it's probably exactly that. That's the play. That's the play she went for, and sometimes we just don't make them.
What did you see overall from their defense? It was interesting because I talked to Jerry all year. Obviously, I saw them a lot. Saw them in Clearwater and Orlando, Oklahoma City, etc. And he changed the lineup a lot. Like, I mean, the stats out there, I've lost track, but he has like completely a lot of different lineups, and he changes players during the game. Like, one of the decisions he made was put Logan Alum in left field, who made a couple great plays, kept them in the game there. But he likes to have Caitlin Terry, for example, in the outfield and things like that. What did you see from their defense over the two games that he even said, his words, they felt they were out of position in a lot of these plays that Texas kind of really took advantage of?
Yeah, I think it was the first game. The left fielder gets burned on you know, Texas slapper. I mean, that kid all year hasn't really put too many that deep. And
Altmaier,
so
yeah, Altmaier.
yeah,
He was frustrated because he felt like Altmaier was a three-hitter a year ago at Arizona, and they didn't understand why they were treating her like a slap hitter. And I think that's kind of what his words in the presser.
yeah. So she has pop, but if you're just looking at probably straight sprays from recently, or you might not see sprays that deep. I mean, I haven't dug that deep in it. I don't know what her sprays look like. Just probably something like that. But you also have a team that's dynamic. That's why they won the national championship. They can do a lot of things. So I think, one, you see Texas kind of really starting to form, be confident and trust each other and just start to play off each other. And then, as Texas Tech, things can speed up on you. You went from things kind of really starting to fall your way at regionals, supers, you just kind of impose your will on Florida, and just throughout the tournament, and it's hard to keep that going. I think they've made some phenomenal plays throughout their defense, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
The pitching, you mentioned that was a very hot topic of all the pitching changes, starting really going back to the supers in game 3 where they won the game against Florida because he had to go back and forth with Nyjah and Caitlin Terry. He did some of that in the World Series, which got some mixed results. The UCLA game, Nyjah gives up the home run to Woolery when he takes Terry out. Things like that. And it was interesting about this champ series. Terry gets to start in game 1, gets pulled. We don't see her again to pitch. Big picture, what did you make of the decisions there of Jerry going aggressive? I think some of that obviously is matchups, but then there were some people wondering why he didn't go to Terry in the 5th inning against Vivi Martinez, the lefty hitter.
I mean, we have so much access to data, so much. We got 643 charts, like you mentioned. You got Synergy, you got True Media. You have all these things. So, if you look into their dugout, you'll see like spray charts, you'll see numbers, you'll see, heat maps. You just see them on the walls in there. So you have all this data, but none of it's 100%. None of it. There's not going to be anything that you pull up that's 100% because you still have college athletes, humans, and there's all this margin for error. And you got to go with your gut sometimes. And if there's a gut I trust, it's Jerry's. And I think the switching pitchers, when you have all that data, who hit both of those pitchers better than Florida did? I mean, at some point I was like, it's going to be whoever has the last at bat is going to win this game.
No, it felt that way. It felt that way, yeah.
And how else can you get creative and combat some of that data by just throwing wrenches in it? You go back to game prep and planning for pitchers and things like that. Tim Walton's one of the best at that. Florida's been great at that for who knows how long. So how do you try to combat that? Well, you think you're getting Nyjah? Oh, you're on deck, getting on time for Nyjah? Well, guess what? Here comes Terry. And then as an offense, you come back to the dugout and you're like, well, I got this, but you're probably not going to even face her. You might. So you don't really even have like a confident idea of who you're about to go face. So to make that adjustment as a hitter, you're like, well, if I face Terry, I'll do this. So you're kind of going in there, mixed. And it's really, a super regional's happening around you with a full stadium. So you have a lot going on. So, Jerry's throwing a wrench in it. Okay, well, I'm just going to make it a little harder. You don't know what you're going to get.
Well, I found what he was interesting. And you know him. He's very honest, sometimes too honest. Right? I mean, but I found it interesting because he admitted he has a harder time pulling Nyjah out of a game when she starts. That it's easier for him to bring her in relief than it is, and in favor of whoever, than starting her and pulling her. Which may go back to your point about the gut feeling there, and I don't blame him. That's Nyjah. That's your ace. I'm curious. You mentioned it because there is so much advanced analytics. As coaches, can it get too much information? Is there such a thing as too much information that maybe makes a decision too more complicated than it should be as a coach?
I think so. I think, again, because nothing's 100%. And, sometimes you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because we simply didn't execute, right? Like, this is what the data said. So we brought in Terry for this moment because this batter is, batting below 100 against lefties. And, maybe she doesn't execute. So it has nothing to do with the decision. The decision was right. We just didn't execute. And that happens because, again, we're talking about student athletes and human beings. You watch an MLB game, they don't execute every pitch. Those guys get paid so much money. So I think you have to remember there's a human element, and just because there's that human element, sometimes you got to go with your gut. Like she's, like Tegan's cooking, we're sticking with Tegan, and Mike White knew that Sitlala could get it done. So, that's his gut. And same with Jerry when he's deciding is, okay, Terry's kind of mowing these girls down. Let's keep her in one more batter. Let's just see. And if you execute, nobody questions it, right? She goes in there, she gets the job done. Nobody's questioning it. She doesn't. They're like, well, why did she stay in more batter? This girl's batting 400 against lefties. So it's hard because you have so much data, because it can be used in that, in that way. But I think you have to know your players as a coach. You have to know them. You have to know, do they mean it when they say they got this? Or are they just saying this because this is what they should be saying? You just have to know them. And, you spend 56 regular season games, the whole gauntlet of postseason, you kind of have an idea of what they can do in what moments.
Honesty, I think that it was interesting. I was at the Tallahassee Regional, covering that regional. There was a UCF Jacksonville State game, which was it went to extra innings. There was a situation where Sierra Humphreys of UCF steals second. The umpire calls her out. Coach Ball Malone comes out. The umpires, though, get together. They forgot to tell us, but they changed the call to safe. But you could tell they changed the call because they went over to Jacksonville State's head coach, Julie Boland, to talk about it. And then she challenged whether the runner left early. And we're all looking at each other. Why are they not challenging whether she was out at second or not? And I found it interesting. She said in the post-game presser, because I asked her about it, she said, well, I went to my shortstop and I asked her, did you tag her? And she was honest with me and said, no, I missed her. So at that point, and that's something they've talked about, and you're shaking your head. How much does coaches talk to your players about just being honest on the play, even if it's not the answer a coach wants to hear, but that's an honest answer, because the last thing you want to do is a player lies to you and then you burn a challenge and you lose it because she was basically didn't want to admit that she missed a tag. And I even commented to Coach Bowler, that's it speaks of the high character of the player and the coach. And while she appreciated that, obviously she wasn't happy with the result, but talk about that. That's to your point. There's got to be a trust factor there.
Oh, absolutely. And when you're talking about anything, you're hoping that they're honest with you because you can get to the solution quicker. This outing, what made you uncomfortable? How can we make you comfortable? Did you actually tag the girl? Was she out or safe? Like, all of those things are going to allow us to make better decisions for them, for our team. But sometimes, you got to know your kid. You might have a really competitive kid that thinks they tagged him. Oh, coach, I tagged him, or coach, she's out. So it's not that they're not honest. It's just, they're emotional, they're competitive. They think that, this happened. So you got to know them in all kinds of different ways and know where they come from. But that honesty, yeah, that's a huge, huge deal in that moment, in that regional.
No, and sometimes too, coaches got to be ready to, own up there. It's funny. I mean, Mike, as great as Gutierrez pitched, Mike White decides to bring in Hannah Wells. Maybe that was by design pregame. Maybe he was going to go by committee. Maybe it was about matchups, maybe analytics, certain matchups. But she kind of scuffled there, but he quickly went back to Gutierrez, which goes back to your point. Like, I do worry, and maybe I'm exaggerating. I'll be the first to admit that. I do worry that are we going too much to baseball? And you're a big baseball fan like I am, and you know this. Where in Major League Baseball, a lot of times now, managers they predetermine the pitchers they're going to go into the game, regardless of how they're doing, which is a very hot topic in Major League Baseball about following the metrics versus going with your gut that we've discussed. Do you think there's some of that going on in softball, or am I overreacting?
I think everyone's going to be a little bit different. I think you have plenty of old school coaches that are like they're not doing that. They're going with what they think. They're going with the moment. Sometimes if you're not getting a good read, it's early in the season. You haven't been through the fire yet. You don't really know what everyone's capable of. Maybe you'll start to use some of the early numbers just to kind of go from there. But I don't think it's ever smart to only use data. But I also don't think that it's smart to ignore data. Because stats don't lie, but they don't always tell the whole picture. And that's where the human element of the coaching comes in, is like, this girl has 4 exams this week, and maybe that's why she's not, competing in the circle and being as tough as she normally is. And it's not just the, anomaly of this lineup or whatever's going on, right? You have to take all kinds of things into account, and stats don't show that. Stats don't show that type of stuff.
You know Jerry well, as time goes by and he thinks back to this champ series, what's going to bother him the most? Outside of losing, obviously, but there, like specifics. What is there anything specific you think will bother him more than any of all the things that occurred in that champ series?
I mean, it's been a while since I've been around him daily, but I know Jerry takes accountability for everything, and I know Jerry may not sleep at night because he's trying to figure out how he can help his team hit pitchers. So he's probably still trying to figure out how to hit Tegan Gavon. He's still probably, how could I have prepared them better? What could I have done to prepare them so that we could have had better at bats and knocked her out of the game, or made her have to work harder, and because that's what he does. He figures out how to prepare his team to hit pitchers, and he's very good at it. But pitchers still rule the day.
Yeah, I think that's
especially
accurate.
Yeah, especially in championships. Defense wins championships, pitching wins championships.
And Texas was the better team in those categories, and that's why they repeated there as national championships. Let's talk big picture. What was your takeaway the entire postseason, the NCAA tournament?
2 first timers at the World Series. I think that's awesome. Awesome for our sport. Got some new, fresh faces, maybe not new faces in supers. Just a little bit of parity. You got mid-majors winning some regional games. All those things healthy, great for our sport. Not as insane as baseball was last week. Where they got 4 mid-majors going to supers, something like that. But
a couple of 4 seeds in particular. Arkansas Little Rock, a 4 seed, got advanced. Cal Poly, I believe, advanced. Yep. Of course, Troy is hosting. Yep. It's college baseball. It's wild. It's the wild. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah, I think softball has some of that. I think, again, like we just talked about, pitching rules the day, and when you see the kind of the mid majors advance, they have a pitcher, but nowadays you need more than one, and I think in baseball, the talent, there's just a lot more arms to go around. They got MLB. They're all of those guys got dreams and hopes of playing in Major League Baseball, and we have AUSL and things like that. But just as quantity, positions, roster spots, not nearly as much professional opportunities. But you have all those guys. They're trying to get the MLB, so they'll go anywhere. And I think what I saw in regionals, I think what I hope the softball landscape saw is that you can play and a lot of schools and make a regional. You can play at a lot of places, and challenge the national seeds. And I think that's great for our sport moving forward. The more that happens, it grows our sport too. It just when there's that much talent to go around, it's awesome.
No, mid majors actually had a good showing in the regionals. St. Mary's got to the regional final. They eliminated Oregon
Oh yeah.
out of in Eugene. I mean, if they win the extra inning game against Mississippi State on Friday night, maybe St. Mary's advance. I mean, we have a completely different conversation.
So close. It's so close.
Right. I was in Tallahassee where Stetson knocked off Florida State on Friday, which shocked everybody and really shook up that regional a little bit. I got it. Chris Hawkins does it again. USC Upstate quietly as a 4 gets to a regional final. You know that. You know, I mean, what?
Janelle at UNCG.
Greensboro beat Clemson. They got some wins there. So Grand Canyon got to a regional final. You just couldn't hit Jordy Fromm and Nebraska's pitching, but they got to the regional final. How about South Dakota eliminating Louisville? Who saw that coming? So there's still definitely the mid majors. There's certainly a big picture there, making the results. Maybe not getting over the hump like in baseball, but baseball certainly, like you said, there's so many variations. I do think people talk about you need multiple arms, and I think that's true. Texas showed that. You needed a second arm. But you do need that ace, don't you? You still need that ace. I think that's what I think. You can't just win by a staff. Somebody has to be the lead, in a movie term, the lead, which in Texas's case, for example, is Tegan Cavan. But you had Gutierrez step up and be the supporting cast and get some quality innings. I think Nebraska with Jordy Fromm, what took him to the World Series is she had an Alexis Jensen as a number 2. Alabama, Jocelyn Brisky, as great as she was, SEC Pitcher of the Year. You had Moten, there's a number 2. I think that's the takeaway. Texas with Kennedy and Terry. Is that the takeaway from this postseason as well?
I think so. I think you have to know you have somebody that's going to get you out of it no matter what. Like, again, we talked about the offense this year, how many records are broken. If you know that you can just put somebody in, they're going to what you're going to get from them, they're going to get it done. Like, that's the ace. That's who you go to. But they also can't throw every day. Tinsley tried.
Boy, did she try, yeah.
And she did a dang good job of it. But that help is nice, one, because they're gonna have to plan for somebody else. They can't just plan for you. But the ace is nice because this is who we're going to. If we need an out, we need out of a jam. We know who our girl is.
I think UCLA Tinsley was that's a historic offense, but they literally did not have a number 2 they trusted in the entire postseason, basically. Tinsley was basically it, and you could tell, boy, they really needed that second arm either during that Texas Tech game, maybe even in the Alabama game. Maybe where it's a different conversation if they have a number 2. Maybe they're in the champ series. So I don't think we'll ever go back to the old days where one pitcher like Taryn Mowat will throw every pitch and get him to Monica or Kat. I think those days are over, but I do think there's still the ace that can be the lead in leading you to a championship. So I don't think the ace is the notion of the days of not needing an ace necessarily, needing a staff, I think is a little exaggerated, still premature.
Oh yeah, I think you need enough because it's a long season. You need enough because as a hitting coach or just preparing your offense, you don't know who you're going to get always. That makes it a little bit more difficult. And if you just prepare for one pitcher, but as a team and a defense, having that ace gives you that consistency, and your team has consistency, and consistency rules the day.
I don't want to dwell on it because people always think it's whining or complaining about it. It's not. It's just stating facts. I kind of agreed with you. I thought the strike zone actually was, for the most part, pretty good at Oklahoma City. My question, and I'm thinking to myself as I'm there, I'm like, why was it like this in the regular season? Like, why are we all over the place on this? Is there a solution? I know baseball is kind of done the robo umps and stuff, but it is wild. Naija even mentioned it in the post-game presser. Others have brought it up. that everybody felt the strike zone was smaller this year, and as a result, we have all this offense in the game. Walks are up higher more than ever before, and you know this, having teach the offense. All the hitting coaches like, hey, take pitches, make the pitchers work, because if the zone is small, odds are you're going to get rewarded. Do you think we'll go back? Are we going to fix it, or is this is what we got here? I'm fascinated to see what happens this offseason, if anything.
Certain what every year they have like something that they're going to emphasize, and it looks like it was emphasized. It looks like it was emphasized to tighten up the strike zone, because they have the technology too. They have TrackMan, they have the technology and things like that, and we've run it at practice, and you can kind of see that it is a little tighter. But I just think at the end of the day, and this is coming from a hitting person, I think if we are starting to call pitches that are strikes balls instead of maybe a ball, a strike, the game has changed. And we saw that. We saw records being broken that hadn't been broken. I don't know how many years, haven't been touched. It's a game changer. And then hitting it's still hard. It's still difficult, but it changes the landscape of the sport. And that's kind of what we saw. It's like, I don't even know if I was alive when they added the shot clock to basketball, but it changed the sport, is what I'm told. So you're not running like four corner, passing the ball around. You have to. The sport has to adapt. The sport has to evolve. And as a sport, we've done that. We've adapted. We've evolved. But I will say that, like, you cannot call strikes balls. You can call balls strikes, but you cannot call strikes balls. And I think we erred on the side of calling strikes balls instead of,
Well, I've talked to former pitchers. The thing that's frightened them is a lot of the pitches in the corners weren't being called. And a lot of people are like, if I can't pitch in the corner, you're forcing me to pitch inside or in or up the middle. Like, you're going to get hit. And not to bring up the whole Florida Texas Tech drama, but I actually agreed and understood where Tim Walton was talking about you can't pitch Mia Williams away too much because she'll make you pay and hit it over the fence. Her 643 charts say you got to go inside on her, but if you're not calling strikes away, Mia Williams knows that. She's smart. She's knows I'm going to just make sure that you're not going to pitch me inside. I'm going to take my weakness away. And so it's a huge advantage for hitters.
Yeah, great hitters do that. Great hitters can cut the plate in half, and if the plate's already basically cut in half without corners, they're going to sit in there and get their cuts in. Like, so you don't take anything away from these hitters because it still requires an immense amount of discipline to do that. But it changes the sport a little bit. And if it stays like that, then, pitchers are going to have to adapt. They're going to, but it's a big change. And it's a big adaptation because, the corners are where good pitchers live. Corners are where good pitchers are made. And if they make that pitch, they should be rewarded for it. I just specifically remember, I can't remember if it was regionals or supers, Megan Grant's up and somebody, I think she already hit a home run that game, and somebody throws her inside pitch. It's a 3-0 count, and she knows it's a strike. So she kind of goes back into her whole routine, and the umpire's like, that's ball 4. So if Megan Grant thought it was a strike, it's probably a strike.
Oh, I think it was the UCF game. It was the super where she's waiting there, and everybody's waiting, and it's like, nope, it's a ball. Now,
even she thought it was a strike.
Right, she thought it, which is kind of wild when the hitter thinks that.
Yeah. Now, like, if there's
that is, I do. I was there in person. I did see that. Now, I will defend the umpires because I have talked to them a little bit. Sometimes, I'm not, call it excuse, call it whatever you want. Some of this too is the catcher frame. The framing could fool the umpire one way or the other, where if the framing is not as good, they think it's a ball, or if the frame is too, do you know what I mean? Like, how much of that is a factor too, where umpires could get fooled like hitters too on a pitch. I've seen that too with changeups where the pitch is so good that even the umpires is fooled.
I mean, that's absolutely a thing. There's a stat they track in baseball. It's catchers who get the most. I guess it probably has gone away now because of ABS, but maybe not because they only get 2. But it tracks like which catchers get the most strikes called for their pitchers that aren't strikes, and so it's obviously a big deal. And when a catcher is consistent at it, they're obviously better at it than other catchers. And there's something to that. There's an art to it. Being calm with your glove and sticking it and making it look like it's a strike for your pitcher is a big deal. And catchers who are good at it, are a pitcher's best friend.
It really is. And again, all we're saying is, we like offense, but I don't think we need football scores. Although certainly college baseball has gotten some football scores. I couldn't believe some of the score, polar controversial. I don't know if we want that. Be careful what
I agree. And Georgia baseball is hosting Mississippi State, and Troy's facing Little Rock. So, if you reseed it, and then maybe that's a better situation for Mississippi State and a better situation for Georgia, but now we get to see Troy or Little Rock go to the World Series. So, that's
the beauty of the bracket. It just played out that way. So, all right, we'll see what happens with that. All right, last thing. You're basically a free agent, Coach, as we talk.
Yep.
Obviously, that's the story there. I've been obviously bugging you about getting into the media side of things. But just kind of where you're at, the sense I get from you in the voice, though, you're going to be around softball, whether it's continuing to coach, interest there, or maybe you're just going to be take over for me on the podcast. But either way, how you've had time, you're still kind of thinking things over here, kind of figuring out what your next move is.
I mean, I've talked with some places and weighing my options, and obviously very passionate about the sport, the game. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy coaching it. And, excited for the new chapter, wherever that is. I've already told you I'm always down for broadcast and hanging out with you on the podcast and things like that, talking the game. But definitely excited for the new chapter. Definitely excited to see whoever ends up, whatever team or situation where I get to kind of continue to spread my love for the game and whatnot.
You could also apply for the Red Sox managerial job. I mean, that.
I mean, I need to be I'd rather be the general manager.
Oh, okay.
Because that's where the Red Sox are lacking right now. I mean, not sure what that team was put together by, but it's definitely like a AAA. Let Bregman walk, let Devers walk. I could go on, but we'd be here all night if you let me talk about.
We'll just do a Red Sox pod on the side. You get your frustration out on there. Maybe we'll just get you on. Hey, we're gonna have the AUSL now. We got GMs and everything going on there.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be a fun summer.
Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting, and I like I said, your resume speaks for itself. The sport's better when you're in it. So that's me saying it. So I hope to see you on the field here next year. Although selfishly, if you're going to be in a headset on, I'm okay with that too. But you'll be fine either way on that. And Laura Trout joining us here. Thanks for always doing this. We'll still keep doing this. Well, like I said, you got a lot of options overall. So life is going to be good. You're going to be involved in softball one way. I'm going to force you to be involved in softball. We can't have softball without you.
Appreciate it.